Okay, so
here?
Yes, 7.
Wow. Yep. Oh, one participant, hold on.
it must be.
What's us?
Yes.
Nobody's on.
He said their piece last.
Oh, Pete, hold on, Pete is on. Well, analyst.
And then we've got Al and Matt are our liaisons.
Al is going to be late.
Yeah, and then Matt Gordon.
Correct, I'll see if we have one other person.
I don't think so.
Okay,
We're good, we just don't want to.
we're good.
Okay, so are we started?
Yeah, oh, hold on, let me start. Okay, go ahead.
You're good.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Academy Community Center Building Committee. Today's Monday, January 13th. And I opened the meeting by calling it to order. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last two meetings, December 17th and January 7th. Do I have a motion for December 17th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any corrections, alterations, additions?
I have one. If my name could be spelled correctly, that'd be terrific.
How do you spell your name?
Okay, in the second line of the call to order?
In all the lines.
In all the lines.
Oh, man.
Consistent.
At least it's consistent, though.
Easy to fix. Change off.
Should be, okay, any other corrections or adjustments, additions? All in favor of approving the minutes for December 17th with the single change of the respell to get the correct spelling of Ann Kelly's name, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries, so the December 17th meeting minutes are approved with that one correction. Second meeting agenda to be approved is Tuesday, January 7th. Do I have a meeting, or do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second,
Second.
any additions, subtractions, corrections, adjustments? Or they got Ann Kelly right, at least in the beginning. When,
The things we noticed.
what a couple of weeks will do. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstaining? No. Those meeting minutes are approved. Chair's comments. I just wanted to bring everyone here and anyone who is listening, give them a kind of an, where we are and how we got here. We have spent the latter part of last year, of the 2024, to put together a bid package for the construction of the Academy building. We eventually approved that and sent that out. We had 5 bidders respond. They have, we arranged the bid, for a base bid, which include the largest part of the construction of the construction of the building, and there were 11 ad alternates, which could be bid on separately by each of the bidders. We went over those ad alternates in our last meeting on January 7th. We selected the ad alternates that we thought would be best accomplished by the construction company. And we took 2 of them. I believe we took 2 that we said did not have to be done at all. And there were 3 that had, that would be transferred to, would be worked at the town in its, with its resources would be best to handle and handle that part of the construction process. Did I get all that right? Looking like committee. Okay, good. What we're going to do, what we did in our last meeting was we looked at those, the selections that we made for the ad alternates and did the, and what the base price was of each of the bidders and what we thought would be additional work that might be done or have to be paid or any additional monies that have to be paid. And we came up with what we would consider to be, what we consider to be an all-in scope for the project. And based on the bids, and the ad alternates, and the work that the town is going to do. And we had a pretty lively discussion about which one would be in, which one would be out, and how much that translated, and what the translation of that would be to an all-in cost for the building. We have those costs calculated today by John Coppolis, our representative from Colliers. We're going to go over them, what he has based on our recommendations from the last meeting, what that all-in cost looks like for the building, and then we will discuss that. Presumably, if we have to amend it or approve it and approve it, and pass that on to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday and the Board of Finance on Wednesday. Tuesday morning is a Tuesday morning meeting with the Board of Selectmen and a Wednesday afternoon meeting or Wednesday evening meeting with the Board of Finance. You okay? Okay. Good. The next are the, so that's the chair comments. The liaison reports, Al is going to be late. He's not going to be here, but he said that he basically had no comments to add other than, what we had just discussed. Subcommittee updates as part of our normal agenda. Do any of the subcommittee members, would any of the subcommittee members like to update us on either theater, environmental, or design? No. Thank you for your work. 6 is review and approve an invoice packet. Ann and Joan, are there any invoices to be approved?
None today.
Any budget line item transfers for today?
Not today.
I do have, there was some, or the last meeting when we discussed this, there was some cross-outs and some additions and some subtractions to the actual printed version of that of the invoices. And so I actually have another clean copy that was sent to me today, and I will sign it today, and I'll leave it with the in the office for file. Any questions so far? Anything to add? Colliers. John? Colliers update, or you?
I'll defer to the item number 10 of the business and review those comments at that time.
QA&M update, Brian? You want to talk next week now, or you want to say? Okay. That actually takes us down to the new business. Discuss and take action to determine the total project cost to be recommended to the Board of Selectmen and / Board of Finance. John, we'll turn that over to you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. As you know, at the last meeting, we ended up going through the former bid summary, and we recalculated the base bid numbers with the selected alternates that were chosen. Those alternates being, again, alternate number 1 for the beach and office fit out, alternate number 2 for the Madison Youth and Family Services office fit out, alternate number 4 for the gymnasium performance upgrades, alternate number 6 for the parking lot upgrades, alternate number 7 for the site upgrades, and alternate number 11 for the equipment upgrades. So those 6 alternates that were selected at the last meeting were then incorporated into the base bid for the 5 initial bidders. and that summary and total cost, amended total cost was reflected on the far right column of the updated bid summary sheet. As Joe touched on previously, there were 5 other alternates that were not selected at that time, 2 of which were asked not to be pursued as far as any pricing. That was being alternate number 9, the liquid encapsulant, and alternate number 10, the flooring. So the 3 that were pursued as far as further research by QAM and Colliers for pricing were alternates number 3 for the recital hall upgrades, alternate number 5, the gymnasium sports equipment upgrades, and alternate number 8 for the playground. So those 3 alternates are broken out on the 8.5 by 11 sheet that is distributed to each of you. What this is showing are those 3 alternates with the anticipated, or I should say estimated costs on the left column. Those are all lump sum costs for each of those items that make up those alternates. The cost is then carried into the chart on the right. The first column of that chart shows those same costs. There is then a middle column that expresses the escalation over the roughly 1.4 years that would incur between now and when these items would likely be purchased by the town. That is the decision to pursue. And then the final cost column, on the far right are the costs associated with the initial cost plus the escalation figure to result in the numbers on the far right. So those are the costs determined from QAM's research. Brian, do you want to add anything else?
Right, I mean, what we could see on each of those, there was a pretty wide range of prices that were quoted by the various general contractors. How did you come up with something? How did you come up with something that,
The playground one was, I consulted with Kent Frost for their numbers, and we also used some historic data on our end. And same with the gym equipment. We did reach out to the rep for the acoustic treatments and got some square foot prices and did some rough takeoffs for those numbers. And same thing with the treatments.
so if I could summarize, then you did not use these numbers that are on this sheet. You went out to sources and developed your numbers independently. Is that?
We got some material costs. They did not cover installation costs, so I had to, essentially factor in what I would believe to be a reasonable installation cost. So, these are in no way meant to be, contract values, but they're budget numbers.
One thing to clarify regarding the acoustical paneling, there is a difference between materials being used in the recital hall and materials being used in the gymnasium. So there is, that's part of the reason for that delta that you'll see on that page between the 2 acoustic numbers that are reflected there.
So to open up discussion, as I recall, we asked for these alternates not because we didn't necessarily think that they should be included in the project, but we asked for them to get a better sense of what you think the real market value for the cost of that is. So I guess the question now, Joe, is, sort of how do we incorporate these prices back into the all budget price? If we vote yay or nay on whether or not to keep them in, do these go back into contingency, knowing that we can't buy the alternates because, if we take a look at the gym sports equipment, 129 escalated out versus, the lowest bidder has 283, right? So that's something I think we would want to buy ourselves and install versus buying out the alternate, which is a higher number. So do do we kind of incorporate this into FF&E? Are we incorporating it into contingency?
It's in FF&E right now.
Yeah.
On what was given
It
to us.
is in the FF&E? Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the
To
yellow.
answer your question on a more basic level, the first thing I think we have to do is do what Kevin's done or what is here, is it in the scope of the 2022 referendum? If it's in, then we have to put it somewhere.
Mhm.
But if it's not, and I think that was the case of the liquid encapsulates and the flooring.
Mhm.
The liquid encapsulates was definitely an extra. The flooring was, it was an either or, and we decided these could be either, it didn't take the or. So that was, but for the other three, are they, or, as they're written or described, are they or are they not in the 22 referendum?
So is our first task to kind of vote on each one? Whether or not we believe it to be following the intention of the referendum language?
I think my thought is we should go through this spreadsheet. Because when we get to the bottom of the numbers, we may have some conversation on what we need to do. Just my suggestion. And as we go down the list, maybe John, Brian can explain those alternates.
The way that was incorporated, it was incorporated in that sheet that Dave was referring to. This,
Yeah, I know, see
So,
it.
and I believe all of it's in the FFP, is that right, John?
Yes, these three items from this page are incorporated into the FF&E.
So there's a number of points of discussion. Is it, are they in the referendum based on what Kevin, the work that Kevin put together? Is FFE the right place? Is an escalation needed? Is a contingency needed? So all those, John made some assumptions on that. And I guess, as Dave said, if we go down the list, we might just be able to see the assumptions. And say,
Well, I think we'll get to that pretty quick.
yes, it comes out pretty quick.
Pretty blank.
And I have the language from the explanatory text if we ever need to kind of read it out loud and refer back to it as to what our charge.
Was part of the spirit of bringing these out though also to save the town some money? Because I thought our expectation was that we could put a budget amount in that was a lower price than what we were gonna get if we bought it.
So I think I try to be realistic with my
No, no,
costs.
I know, that's what, I appreciate that, but I'm trying to get from a committee perspective. It was part of the spirit of that, like, if it's not cheaper, then why aren't we just buying it? If we have to put it in and it's cheaper now, why wouldn't we do it?
Okay.
That's
Well,
what I want.
the assumption is that we're gonna do this, all of it's gonna be done now. That is the way it's priced. Everything will be done now. So the building will be built to the referendum, to the scope of the referendum, and the assumption is gonna be all done now. If some needs to be put off, I mean, I imagine that might be something the town would have to say, because then the town's gonna have to go to, if the town's gonna go to another referendum, they're gonna have to say, well, it's everything but this.
Right.
We'll do this later, we promise.
I think the same discussion will be had at the Board of Selectmen level,
Right.
and potentially even Board of Selectmen, and Board of Finance together too, so.
But to answer your first question, I'm going all the way back. I remember the first question. You said, why did we do it this way? I believe, and maybe anyone here can correct me if I'm wrong, that the thought was that we'd be able to get a base package that was within the scope, within the budget, the $15.9 million budget. And if there was no other method of getting funds for the project, we could at least build the scope of a $15.9 million building. But the way the bids came in, $15.9 million doesn't give you anything that's operable.
Right.
So,
So
but that was I think that was the original reason for the split of the ad alternate.
I took a different viewpoint of it,
Okay.
if I may. And it was that the alternates had such a large swing in possible prices that we weren't asking because we thought maybe we could take this out and save the town money in terms of taking it out entirely. We were asking to get more real numbers because if you look at what the cost of the gym equipment backboards, Brian's saying it's coming in at about 130,000 versus if you look at the bidder, they put their price in at 283.
Well, it says
So-
subtotal 285. What am I
Right.
missing?
So, well, if you add them all up, that's everything together.
But it is everything
Well,
together,
and that's the point of the breakout is,
Right.
I mean,
285.
you can go with the basketball package.
Oh, so this allows
but
us
not-
to shrink the
not
scope.
proceed with the acoustic treatments or
Exactly.
something like that, so you can have.
This was the way to shrink the scope if we want to drop some of those items out.
And it was
Yeah.
also a
Okay.
gut check, because if you look at the playground stuff, right, it's got two things in it. The total of the two things is 255, but again, if you look at the lowest bidder, their cost to install the playground as specified was 364. So we got a realistic price. Can we buy it from another contractor and not we'll buy the alternate, we just won't buy it from the lowest bidder.
Yeah,
Because the lowest bidder is more expensive than what we think we can get on the market. That
right.
was my intention of asking for a cost breakdown, to get a gut check on what do these things actually cost? Can we buy them on the open market versus buying them from the GC? And will we get a cost savings? It's like, it's basically going to, I'll use this example. It's going to the bookstore and buying a full price book versus going on Amazon and seeing if you can get it for 50% off. It's going to a different source for the same
Yeah,
thing.
and that makes sense.
Well, the only thing is with the playground, we sole sourced it, right? We gave them a
base to the design.
a make and a model number of what to purchase.
Yeah.
Right, so now, we're still gonna go to that same vendor and buy it from the same person, right? Except we'll save the markup from the
Right.
GC putting it in.
You can,
I mean,
shop around.
somebody's installing it.
yeah.
Well, I mean, we can get, when we get to
Let's
that
just-
one, we can talk about it. I don't want to
Yeah.
go through it right now. If you want to walk
I
through these
think we
numbers,
gotta walk through the numbers because.
then when we get there.
Because I think we all want to be confident in what was estimated now for contingencies and
Yeah,
escalation is appropriate
But,
for
but,
our
but
recommendation.
there were a couple of things, like what was it, the recital, the playground, and there were a couple other things. No, the parking lot and the site upgrades, they had to be done. So that was a price issue, but the thought was that we might be able to get something that we could do now and then add on later.
No, understood. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, whatever we come up with today, we have to know what that cost is
Right.
and what is not, and the things that are being excluded from that
Right.
cost. So everyone's very clear what they're getting, what they're not getting.
Right. Okay, so are we okay to go to flip this?
Yeah.
John, are you done with this page?
Yes.
Okay. Flip the page and go to the
The scroll.
scroll, the long
We got
scroll.
the budget summary document. This document has two columns. The right column is from the budget referendum of February 2023, and that is the total of the $15,900,000. The column to the left is the updated budget costs, which are factoring in the base bid, the alternates, and then some of the other numbers that have since changed from the column on the far right. So if we start about midway through the page, the upper portion is not a consequence, to be honest, just square footages and things of that nature. The line that reflects the total construction dash escalated figure. Originally, as you know, it was $12,180,900 for the construction, the hard costs. That number has been adjusted based on the selection of the low bidder with, again, those alternates that were selected at the last meeting. That number is now at $18,958,105. So that is that number that's highlighted there in the yellow. Below that are
Can we
the.
stop there for a second?
Yeah, question. Go ahead.
So we take questions and discussion at
Sure.
this level.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. So that total includes three items that are, what do we call those? We had three items, the topsoil.
The allowances?
We had three allowance items, right? And we
Yes.
had a numerous amount of unit price items, right?
Mhm.
So where are we carrying Contingency down at the bottom for those items in the event that they go over quantity?
Yes, I guess the simple answer to that is yes. The allowances are incorporated into the base bid.
No, correct, but they could go up.
They could go up if they find, for example, the roof sheathing, when they do the demolition, removal of the existing roof system, and the material or the quantity is more than what is anticipated, then that figure is potentially used, or is the contingency, I should say, is used to compensate for any overage that would not be addressed in the base bid scope of work.
And how many unit price items do we have?
Oh, boy.
A lot.
About 30 some.
All right, so out of 30 something, we'll say 35, right? Those could have overruns too, right?
Potentially, the majority of those were associated with the abatement and demolition.
Well, I mean, part of that is because you took it out, right? So your hazardous material number was 830,000, right, in the base, and now it's all incorporated into this 18,
18
No.
million, correct, yes.
right? So out of those, okay. I'm just concerned that we could have overruns on those two things.
Would that be covered by the construction contingency?
That's
Well,
what the
it
exact-
could be, but I mean, we
So
have a
that's
bunch
the
of other
$500,000.
items here too that are,
Right,
we haven't made it to the bottom.
yeah, yeah,
I
I
just
know.
want to be clear, like, okay, so how much do you guys normally carry for contingency, say on a $19 million project?
It's usually 5 to 7%.
5 to 7%, okay. All set, thanks.
And does that include then the allowances for overages of the line of materials?
That's, if I understand the question, that's incorporated into your contingency numbers.
Which the contingency at the bottom?
Yes,
And-
yeah, the owner's contingency,
The owner's contingency.
yes.
So the owner's contingency should be somewhere around 7% of that 18 million. Is that correct?
Correct.
On that, yeah, 19 million.
19.
The nine.
Well, plus these other items at the
Right.
bottom.
But it should start, right now, it should be 7%. I mean, from what we've done.
Well,
so
we're on the, it looks like we're on the
5 to
low end of that.
We're on-
Right, I think we need to have a different contingency discussion.
We'll keep going.
Okay,
Hey,
That's
Don,
higher.
finding the
Okay.
contingency, because
Okay.
there's two, because it's construction and an owner's
And
project.
owner's project.
Which is, you talking about the 5 to 7%, where is that the two combined?
That's combined, yes. Yeah, essentially, it's the same
Bucket.
bucket of money. What you have, like the owner's project contingency is often associated with changes to some of the fees. Like if the architect ends up being requested to do some additional scope of work, that number, that fund would come out of the owner's project contingency line as opposed to the owner's construction contingency line. The construction is mainly associated with the construction itself. They are interchangeable certainly, so, you know, if you're, you know, got through halfway through the project and you find that the owner's project contingency amount is not being touched, then, you know, that money can just be transferred over to the owner's construction contingency line and be used in the same format there.
I think overall the concern is we have a building that's been closed for 20 years, right? There's gonna be some unknowns we're gonna encounter, so we have to make sure we're covered.
Any other questions on that one?
other than I think with someone, I think we've agreed that we'll need a contingency discussion when we get to, somewhere near the end. Is that correct? When we look at all the
Yeah,
contingencies
stop
together.
So the next group of numbers are associated with the FF&E items. Those are delineated on the left. The first one, loose furnishings. That number was originally the $135,000 was allocated for that cost. That has since been modified and raised up to $250,000. Brian's group had reviewed furniture drawings. I may speak to that.
Yes, we have a schematic furniture layouts, and we just based off of historic prices from recently completed projects. Also assuming state contract prices. And so, you know, the 135 number will probably get you offices and cyber hall furnishings, maybe the lounge. But to fully equip the building, you're looking more like 250 for
There's also,
So is this furniture?
Yes.
Was there any consideration given to the possible availability of furniture from elsewhere? The town inventory.
Some of it is somewhat site specific. Certainly, like classroom tables and chairs can be reused if you have those available. You would need an inventory from somewhere to go off of the.
If
So
I
so this
may,
assumes that there is no alternate source of furniture.
and if I may, coming from facilities, I used to be the construction manager there, that is a correct assumption that most of the school furnishing that is currently in Jeffrey and Ryerson will be divided up and reused in Brown. And in terms of town departments, there is nothing extra that is usable at this point for a building like this. So I think it's a good assumption that this building will get entirely new furniture.
Thank you.
there is a possibility, and you can speak to this if you want, as to whether or not there may be some furniture from Madison Family Youth Services or the Beach and Rec offices, but I don't know
We
what,
could furnish our own.
depending on,
Yeah, you don't have to worry about youth and family services, because we've got existing furniture we can bring into the building.
For
At least for youth and
all
family.
offices?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say for you.
So why don't we, if you could, for the next round for Board of Selectmen, if you could give us a list of what the furnishing, like X number of desks, X number, that kind of
The
thing.
takeoffs for the furniture.
Because you said you were looking to outfit the whole thing and what, the numbers are, how many are gonna be in each room, that kind
I'll
of thing.
see how Eric can have that separate.
Yeah, if you could.
So it sounds like we had some escalation, and we had a miss on our referendum estimate a little bit, right, on cost?
For the building?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're.
For the loose furnishings.
Using more, but,
I mean,
even with using, youth family services, I don't think your 135 would be adequate.
okay, so that was a miss, okay.
Or there was an assumption at that time that there was other furniture that we would be able to use. That's the other thing you've got to,
Right.
considering how many buildings we've closed.
There might, and that may still be true. I mean, and these are not numbers that we are committing to spending until we get to the day that we actually buy the stuff, right?
Their budget.
Yeah.
Make sure we have enough budget.
Yeah, I would in that case, personally, I'd rather us have budget to buy what we need to buy, find savings and regain that money than be the other way around, right?
Yeah. Am I correct in saying that the FFE, all the FFE is going to be purchased by the town and not by the general contractor?
Correct, it's about that.
So
Yes.
again, I think that's exactly what you're saying, that no matter what the budget is, no matter, within reason, that if the town has control of it, if the town wants to pull things in from another building, they could. If they want to buy it new, they could. If they not furnish the rooms, then they could do that also. So this will be in the total control of the town once the building is completed or nearly completed. Correct? Correct?
Yeah.
It's still under our purview though, right, as a building committee?
Typically,
Yes.
yeah.
But there was nothing big added to make that jump. It was more, let's look at everything that's there.
Just the overall scope of the building. It's-
I have Erica's breakout if you want to go to it.
Oh, you have it?
I do.
Is there a way we can?
I don't see a need to go through it right now,
Yeah,
if you wanna.
I'm good, let's just look up plug numbers, keep it for now. We got bigger issues.
Can I ask you a quick question? Just if you're talking about, thank you. If you're talking about these detailed spreadsheets, can we get a copy here in the audience? Is that possible? Or can we put them on the screen or do something?
Sean, do you have an
I
extra set?
have two copies.
But would you be able to share it enough ways?
She just does offices in general, so you have desk and storage quantity is 20. Desk chairs is 40, waiting area chairs is 13, task chairs is 20, so it doesn't separate out which is single family versus which is
Okay,
addition.
and we should probably confirm that you would need anything specialized
Yeah,
in
I
reception
think-
areas or.
The office spaces, I feel confident because we furnished offices now. I think if there's like shared spaces where like conference tables or other things would be needed, we don't have that.
Okay, and then some of the more specialty custom fit pieces like a reception desk or something like that, you might need.
Yeah, that would be true. Thank you.
Any, are you still going down the list here, John, on
Yes.
section 4? Okay.
So that's the first line, the next, try to move things along, the next, like 4 lines there are associated with, equipment, data equipment, telecom equipment, audio visual, security, things that the town would be purchasing, ViewSonic boards, monitors, things like that. Stuff that are going to be specific to some of those spaces, some of those community rooms that the general contractor would not be purchasing. The wiring and the interior components for those would be addressed as part of the base scope, but the actual components that are, placed on the walls in the rooms would be, underneath those, 4 line items there.
Now, there was a lot of meeting time devoted to what the town specifications were for some of that equipment. Has
So
that
there is an IT package.
Has that been incorporated into these budget numbers? Any
Part of that
changes?
has, I'm sorry,
Yeah, any changes that the town had requested for any of that equipment?
yes, that was incorporated, as Brian was saying, into the base documents, the base bid documents. What is it? EA Technologies?
Yeah,
The Augustino designed that into the project. So this is to supplement some of that scope and also to address some of the specifics associated with, that component or that piece of the building when it comes to the owners, the town's selection for certain items that are not specifically called out on that, on the document.
Yeah, so for the things that the general contractor is not purchasing, my understanding is the town has said we like these kinds of locks to be installed, or these kinds of cameras to be installed. Would some of that be reflected in these numbers? And they said, oh, we want these kinds of cameras. Maybe they're more expensive than the ones that we
Yeah, so basically
expected.
the work has a camera at each door and the major intersections. But we don't have monitors like that in the scope of work, or it's like a plug-in, used type product. None of that would be in the PC contract.
And none of that's reflected in these numbers.
Well, it's the budget number that.
That's what those are.
That's what those,
Right, that's what I'm asking is if they like this type of monitor right here, if we price that unit into these numbers, or have they not been updated to reflect what the town's preferences are? So we've got a budget, we had 75, that went up to 90. Is some of that because maybe the town likes a certain brand?
that's just escalating.
It's just a percentage bulk increase. It has nothing to do with what the town's preferences are. Okay.
The next line item is the kitchen. As you'll notice on the far right, the $125,000 was initially carried for that. That number has been eliminated because that is now part of the base bid scope of work of the 18.9 million above. Specialty signage, that number is just reflecting the escalation from the original 25,000 that was carried for that. And then the next 3 items are the 3 items that were from the previous sheet that we had discussed regarding the alternates that were subsequently priced out by QA&M. And those numbers are the totals, and the breakouts are to the right there in that smaller breakout box.
Do we want to look at these at all and make any kind of recommendations to cut some things?
So,
Which ones are
there's
you looking
no, I guess,
So, for instance, on the recital hall, I would actually remove the acoustic tiling and the stage curtains. The only thing I'd leave in is the motorized window treatments, unless you feel it's easier just to have the long pulls on them. I thought we were thinking that they would be better to be motorized, but if they're straight, that's fine. And then I would also remove the acoustics and wall ceilings from the gym, keeping as long as we have the safety padding.
Yeah.
There.
That's with the basketball. equipment.
Yeah, it says.
And to me, the motorized window treatments there are probably more critical because
Yeah.
of just the height of those windows than it would be in something that's fairly, easier to reach and be able to be put on a pole. So,
So just the nature of those windows, it is an unusual configuration to get the motorized shades. A cheaper option would just be an opaque film, if that's something that you want to consider, but if you lose the visibility.
no, I'm saying the motorized window treatments for the gym are good, but the ones that are in just straight window treatments for, rather than motorized, you could still have blackout window treatments, but they don't necessarily have to be motorized in the recital area.
Okay, so you could probably save 10 to 15% of the number I had.
Correct. But if you cut out the acoustics, I mean, you're now down to a $10,000 versus $150,000 cost, is my thought there.
So is the plan that the town's gonna put these out to bid?
So you could put it out to bid and pursue with an alternate contractor. Something that we do need to discuss is any kind of Buy America, Build America requirements. We were originally assuming all soft costs would go in that category. I think somebody threw out the notion that we could just do the kitchen equipment through that, or, packages that are self-contained. But you might need to have isolated contracts for some of that scope of work.
But that's only if you're using the federal funding for these.
Yeah, so
If
whatever
you're not,
obligation you
it
have.
doesn't matter.
Yeah. Basketball equipment might be a good option for that if you need to use some of that cost for Buy America, Build America.
But the sports equipment, the gym equipment, right, then you'd be putting out to a separate bid.
Yeah.
So then you're gonna almost sole source it to make
Well,
sure it's a
you-
I
road.
thought we were eating all those funds. I thought it was understood that the general contractor was eating those grant funds. No,
Well, I don't,
I think we can bid these out and just roll all of this down.
no, but anything that had to be Build America, Buy America would have been done by the general contractor. Those funds would have been exhausted.
right, that's what we're saying.
So we don't need to do,
I think it's the project on whole, it's not individual items.
no, I think it's for the federal money that you're spending.
Yeah, whatever money you're getting from the federal, that's the amount that you had to allocate.
Anything but that money has
Yeah,
to
and
follow.
it gets to go to self cost, so any furnishings can be applied to it. As long as it's a standalone project, you can't, bid out light fixtures or something like that, because they're critical to the building's operation.
Okay, so
Yeah, going back to that the town is going to make these decisions
yeah, I thought that.
at the,
general
at the,
contractor-
at the proper time.
Right.
We could, if we, our job is to put like a reasonable budget on it
Mhm.
without saying motorized or not motorized.
Yeah, so my point is, from my perspective, I would bring the recital hall upgrades down to that, just keep the $12,000 in there. And that's alternate number 3, and on alternate number 5, I would remove the 145 light, the acoustic wall ceiling stuff at this point in time.
So,
I would say that we could, and honestly, I still, the electronic blackboard for the kids. Whatever's the norm is whatever is the standard. I don't know if that's,
Did we price out what a hand crank model of that would be?
I didn't, just because I didn't have any historic data. I imagine they're.
I'm sure facilities could give you a
but
price.
the other question is, we've got 2 schools closing that I think have gyms with scoreboards in them. So maybe
They don't have scoreboards.
in Jeffrey?
No,
Okay,
The only one that has one is Brown.
And that school's staying open.
right. So
I was even eyeing up the equipment in the old Polson gym, but it doesn't look like you'd want to move that over to this. It's old too.
No, Brown is in the similar spot. We're just talking about the.
Brown's keeping open, but.
Yeah, right.
Well, one of the things, if we're making those decisions, that means that they're gone forever, because you'll never put the acoustics in if you don't do it as part of the
Well,
The general
at this
plan.
point in time, there's nothing, the acoustics can be managed in both of these
Okay.
facilities through sound. And then if we do fundraise outside of this project for greater access for theater, which people have been saying we can do that, I'm saying go for it. If they do, then that can be part of that project. Is my point.
Like your style, Jim.
Well, no, I mean,
No, it's true.
it's either, I mean, to put the acoustics in, but not the lights, to do this, but not that. I mean, let's say, all right, if people really, because if people really say, for our thing, we want, theater and music, and we give them the basic, which is, the piping to wire stuff when it's needed and things like that, and just have the infrastructure, so we're not tearing things apart when that happens, that can be an outside fundraiser. And to me, you can adjust.
Yeah.
If you can adjust sound in a tent in a thunderstorm, you can do it in a gymnasium, right? That's what that's what the sound people do. They make,
I would like to ask,
Right.
though,
right,
the engineers here, or the designers, are the acoustics only for sound management of stage, or is it for internal noise too? I mean, if you don't put the acoustics in and you have a basketball game or a rousing pickleball play, are you gonna echo the place out?
And so you will have the wall padding, which will, accommodate some of the noise cancellation.
The wall padding is for bouncing off the walls.
right.
Yes, but it's still, it's a softer surface, it does have acoustic properties. You probably won't be that different off from what it is now.
Okay.
Do
Well,
our
it is
other
now, it's totally
gymnasiums have
silent,
sound acoustics?
It's been silent for 20 years.
So our other gyms don't have acoustic panels. They have the padding to prevent
For
hurt,
safety.
for safety,
Yep, okay.
which is deadening itself, yeah.
Okay.
Has a little bit.
So that knocks off 235,000.
Right.
Nice job, Joe.
So then do we roll those costs?
Oh,
down
actually,
into
it's more than that, because I
contingency?
also don't think the stage curtain is needed for the
Well, I
recital.
think the bottom.
Right, or you said the motorized window treatments in the recital.
Yeah, but I'm
You
just
can
saying
keep
we
them, I
don't
mean,
pull them as alternates because we're not buying them from
You can
GC,
keep
we're gonna
it
bid them out, so it's
yeah.
gotta be accounted somewhere, but it shouldn't be held as an alternate, because that's not where that's.
It's
What pot of money are we
Include the PCA in your,
Yeah.
um,
Well, certainly let them
I
split it,
thought was
Yeah.
to bring this to
but whether or not
town.
they become
So
the
it's
lowest.
30 and
well,
remove.
something like,
I'm imagining three big packages, one for the
That would be great.
So that's
So
10.
on the competitive, something like.
280
Yeah.
Because I think this is woefully.
So Joe, what's the next step? So that we get-
Okay, so now that we've saved some money, I'm going to go on to alternate number 8, which I think the playground equipment
Well,
for 150 is woefully under priced, personally.
can we
Consider-
can we close out 5 before we
Oh,
go to
sorry.
8?
So should we vote on number 3 first?
Yeah, or maybe vote on 3 to make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay.
So I will move that alternate number 3 total numbers, we remove the acoustics and we remove the stage curtains and we keep the $12,000 in. And whether that goes down because it's manual versus motorized, that's something that the town can decide at the time. That might cut another 5,000 off.
Are we moving that it gets moved into contingency?
No,
Or are we gonna have the general contractor do it?
The general contractor isn't gonna give us for that much. Cause that was the whole point. Their bids came in higher than what we think they are. So if the vote is that we move to contingency so that then we can go out and bid it separately from the GC.
Well, we could still have the GC submit a bid for the work.
We could, but it doesn't necessarily need to be bought from them. That's what I'm saying. Like, is the exercise now, we know this is about what the cost is. We want to go out and bid it separately. Like I'm seeing right now, 3 different packages. We go and we bid out motorized window treatments. We go and we bid out gym equipment, and then we go and we bid out the playground. And those are 3 packages that we just go and put out RFPs and we get the lowest bidder. So in order to hold that money, because it's no longer an alternate, because the GC is not providing it,
Right.
we move that money down into contingency and earmark that $12,960 of this contingency is earmarked for.
Well, it's already
Well,
FF&E.
it's FF&E, which is what is
It's
being,
already that kind
the
of thing.
town's
isn't it?
bidding that out anyway. All the FF&Es are not going through the GC, right? So it's in FF&E, I'd rather have it
I guess
line.
I'm deferring to John as to what the proper place, what the proper bucket is to
Okay.
control this and keep track of it.
I think,
I'll use some of my experience to say that if you're just going to bid these out separately, the curtains and window treatments, curtains and window treatments, then you just leave it alone as it is unless these numbers are woefully off. Because you want to buy them at some point, and there would be in the normal scope of a theater, you'd have a curtain. Acoustic panels, maybe you take those out altogether. But if you're planning on just bidding them out in a different way, then they should stay as they are.
Well, we have to
And
come
not,
up
don't
with a final.
necessarily put them into FFE or into the contingency.
I think they're in FF&E, I think that's where they should remain. But I also think that they need to be, I think the recital hall should be reduced to 12,000 with the escalation of 12,900. And I think the acoustics, I think the gym sports equipment should be reduced by the 156,600. Because there is no acoustics in any other gym in this town. So that's, and there is not a need for that small of a stage to truly have a curtain that pulls and opens. You're not gonna be using it for a production. You're gonna use it for very small things. So, I'm trying to sit here and go, okay, we close to 300,000, we might as well.
I
Bring it
get
down.
it, but then I also heard that we just keep the money in, or we're gonna bid out the packages separately, which doesn't add up. If we're gonna bid the acoustics, it
Yeah,
has to
we're
be in
saying-
there somewhere.
we're
I think we're saying
never
we're not
bid.
doing acoustics at
We're
all.
not gonna do acoustics at all.
Right.
No.
We're not
So
gonna do curtains at all.
instead of
No,
alternates
we're gonna do
3,
window
5, and
treatments is
8,
one thing, the stage curtain is what I'm saying, for
Right.
the full stage curtain on the recital hall makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Cause it's not gonna be used.
Okay.
So for $30,000 for something that I don't, if it's used, I'll personally create a curtain for it if it's needed. But-
You'll hold it up like.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it is, so,
So you wanna
for
think
what
of-
that particular space will probably be used for in its design, you're not opening and closing curtains. You know
Okay,
what
so
I mean?
you're-
It's a
you're-
award ceremony. It's,
Hold on. You're saying take it out, take those monies out altogether,
yes,
Right.
push them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Felicia's saying we should we push them out of here, but we we use those funds to bolster the contingency. I
Or
don't
we
know.
just keep them in FF&E as different line items, like we group the window treatments together as an FF&E line item. We group the gym equipment together as an FF&E line item. We have the playground together as an FF&E line item, knowing that when we get to FF&E, that is when we're going to go out to bid to purchase those, just like we're gonna go to a sole source provider for furniture.
And you could do it that way as long as we remove the other pieces that we have talked about. So, yeah, so your so motorized window treatments would be 34,000 or 35,000. And then the gym equipment is the 129,600, and then the playground is still at 255, 150.
It's gonna redefine it.
Yeah, we're just gonna rename them so that it's very clear.
In FF&E.
And John, do you get
Right.
this?
Mhm.
Or you follow?
I'm still following.
So you can, Kevin, you also? So you will know when we put this in, when you get the next iteration of this, we'll get it. It
Yeah,
will match what we
so
want.
it's essentially multiple, call it FF&E packages. So you have the standard furnishings, but then you have a separate one for window treatments, a separate one for gym equipment, and a separate one for playground.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on
I think we do.
I'll make a motion to
Joan.
do those two. Yes,
Go ahead.
So, just so I'm clear, is there a curtain on the gymnasium stage?
Yes, that's a different thing entirely.
Good, thank you. That will also acoustically help the gym as well,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
For the recital stage, without a curtain, I'm just envisioning like what's gonna happen in that room. So outside of a theater production or music or anything, my 2 cents is if you have a curtain there, it blocks off what's behind the curtain for setup and allows other things to occur in the recital area without impacting a setup or storage that's behind the curtain. Is that?
Can we do that with roll-off screens? The ones that kind of, accordion out and in, they're
Absolutely,
not
yeah.
$30,000.
Yeah, my concern is that I just don't, if you're gonna use that particular recital stage for storage, then yes, it makes sense to have something in front of it. If you're
Well,
not,
if there's storage for the event, while there's other things taking place in the hall.
see, that recital hall is so small, it's gonna be one-off events. It's gonna be award ceremony, the most you're gonna be able to put is maybe a 4-piece music. There is no capability to do a production per se there. That's why.
Stage is the same size as a legacy theater. They do all kinds of.
Okay, we went to the Legacy Theater, we looked at, it's a very different setup, Bill. It really is, and it's not the same size. The Legacy Theater has a deeper, so, I mean, we went and we did the research on the theaters. This particular space is not gonna be used for theater productions. It doesn't have enough depth to it or width to it to be able to do the types of things that it's a short stage. The deep stage that's on the in the gym with the drop floor, that's a production stage with wings and capability for people to go in and out and things like that. So this has been a discussion all the way through. And the recital stage was designed for small things.
Recitals,
Probably not even dance recitals, but because of the
right,
size.
but like piano recitals.
Yeah,
singing
piano recitals. They might be able to do small little things,
Community events. and
community
recitals and things
events,
like that. That's
award
what I'm talking
ceremonies. I
So
mean, we
whether or
have more
not-
award ceremonies than you can shake a stick at, for the Board of Ed stuff. So with all the
And
teams.
sports and stuff, yeah.
Sports and
Mhm.
after school activities, everything is there. So that
all
was
of that
kind
can
the thought
still
process.
take place
Mhm.
without the need for a very expensive fire retardant curtain, is what we're getting at, right? So I think in that case, all of that remains, we just save the town $30,000 by not putting in a curtain that probably will not get open and closed that much.
Okay. I know you didn't get the curtain, but
No, I'm good.
can you
I'm good.
still operate
Yes, sir.
the building? Okay. Good. Thank you, Leslie. So what are we next, John?
Okay, so that, I
Oh,
believe,
we were
we have
making a
oh,
motion.
we're
and then
making
we
a
had
motion. I'm sorry.
So we're gonna move that the 3 alternates become items under FF&E, which are window treatments, gym equipment, playground.
Second.
And what is going into those, I just want to say, is item number 2 under the alternate number 3. And item number 3 under alternate number 5 is the window treatments. That leaves the gym sports equipment, just that one item, line item number 2, and playground remains the same.
So to add on to that, the motorized window treatments item would be $34,560. Gym equipment, $129,600, and the playground at $255,150. And if my math is right, that means that the FF&E total would be $1,184,960.
Do we have, what is that equating in total? We just knocked how much off of,
It's off of the 1469.
right, so what is 1469 minus 180?
280 or so.
Okay, so we just knocked off 185,
I guess-
185,000 off of our bottom line,
285.
285.
I don't know when the right time is to ask this, but I am concerned about this playground number.
Yeah, that's,
So we want to vote on creating those and then talk about the numbers?
let's,
We've created the 3 buckets.
right, okay.
And so that's done. now we can have a discussion about how much money
We
goes.
haven't actually voted.
Oh, we haven't voted. Well, maybe then we should still talk about the numbers that go into it.
Okay. So,
It sounds like there's some issue that the playground number is too low.
this is just for the equipment, not the installation, correct?
Well, you said that you put in a,
So it's for everything inside the fence. So the fence will be included in the site alternate that we accepted.
Right.
Inside the fence would be what is considered the playground.
So the playground equipment that was spec'd out, was that approved by Beach and Rec? Have they seen it? Do we know what it even looks like?
It's in the
It's in the
contract
plans.
documents.
Like a drawing? No, I haven't seen that, but I would think as long as it's comparable to what's there now.
It's, you can't fit as much as you have currently. We fit as much as we
Much-
can in space. But, you know, current codes require certain clearance around all the equipment, so we did what we can with the space available. But it's less than what you have existing.
I guess the 150 seems low to me, considering we just the number of times we've bought playground equipment in this town in the last few years, it seems low.
So we have.
I'm just scared about
Four
this.
pieces though, right? It
you
wasn't-
said it's smaller
Yeah.
too.
It is smaller.
I guess my concern is of the bids we saw, this is the only data I have to go off of for these numbers. Only one of those came in under this number, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 examples of the exact specs that we're talking about being over that budget, right? So
And
my concern is we go to bid and we see these numbers again.
yeah,
Maybe
considering,
minus a markup or so, but that's gonna be 10%? So we're still,
yeah, I mean, we have one that's close and everything else is minimal.
Do an average real quick.
Yeah, let's remove that outlier of the average.
Joe, if I may, while he's doing some math, the playground that was quoted or we received budget numbers on, is that like fully ADA compliant with ADA flooring and access?
The new specified playground? Yes, I mean, Ken Frost does this all the time, like they,
It contains the rubberized substrate
Good.
surface there?
Yep.
That's what you're asking?
Yeah, just the actual like playground equipment is accessible.
Yes.
And we've got that in all the others, correct?
There's accessible pieces at the playground.
Right, okay.
I mean, even just taking the middle three.
yes,
Yeah,
I
we're like
took, I included
325.
the ASIC and the one. I dropped the high and the low. High and the low.
Yeah.
I get 280,731.
So,
So if you want to raise the cost to, 280 or 285, that would be,
You said we had a savings of 285 or so?
yeah.
So
Could
maybe
transfer here.
we do a
Well, we
250
don't need that-
savings
we
and
don't
put
need all that.
35, put 35 in there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
As a buffer, which would bring us up to 290. And, if it comes in under, it comes in
if
under.
it comes in
but
under, I'm great, but if it goes over,
Then,
now we're eating contingency money to do this, and we might need that for something else. And that's where I'm concerned, we get real tight, and this is gonna get bid at the end of the project, so
right,
if they're gonna compromise, they're gonna compromise here, and I hate to see that happen.
And is
Over
this,
40 grand or 30 grand, not 20.
and was this considered installed?
correct.
And it was installed by a separate contractor than the general contractor?
The number I gave, or,
No, the equipment itself.
yeah, it would include the install.
So
So is the rubberized surface already there? Maybe this is a little too deep into the weeds.
No.
Okay, but it's gonna be installed by a separate contractor
Outside of the GC.
outside of the GC.
I mean, they can certainly put a number on it, but if, you would be obligated to award it to them if.
Yeah.
If they're not.
Considering this is gonna be smaller than the one that's currently there, I think we wanna make sure that whatever gets in there is usable and.
I hope so.
Austin, can I ask you, so I'm on the MadisonCT.org website. I'm pulling up the capital improvements. So fiscal years 2025, 2026. There's a line item for BNR Surf Club Playground at $234,422. What is that? What is the scope of that? Is it comparable to,
So that's the new playground that was installed a couple years ago
the surf club?
at the surf.
And that was the total cost for it? Okay, that is a
years ago?
significantly larger playground though, correct? Because you've got multiple
Yeah,
play areas.
It's spread out more. It's a bigger footprint.
You got the toddler area, you've got.
There's a toddler area, there's a middle kind of smaller kid area, and then the bigger playground.
But that doesn't have the mulch, because it's just sand,
Correct. It does not have,
Right.
I'm just
So
trying to
the-
get as close to apples and apples as we
Yeah,
can.
so
that's
I think
Previous
definitely
town.
including in the academy playground, we poured in place rubber, is that what you're? Yeah, so that's important for accessibility. That's one thing we don't have at Surf Club, it's all sand. So accessibility wise, there is accessible pieces to the Surf Club playground, which means like you can roll up to it, you can access it, but the sand is the sand. It's not,
Right,
what you would consider fully accessible.
you're not gonna do that other than at the surf
Right.
club. You're not gonna put sand down
Right,
in another playground area.
so that 234 is simply for equipment and installation,
Correct.
we have a number. Not quite apples to apples, but at least we know what that playground
And
equipment.
that was a couple years ago too, so we have to,
Close enough.
Mhm.
Close enough for government work.
So, Ann, you're the keeper of the numbers. Could we add another 35 to the 255? So then it's 290.
To make it 290.
Yep.
Sure.
I know we're adding, but we did do a big subtract.
Yeah, does that,
Well, we wanna
does
be
that
realistic.
capture?
Right.
Then the savings is, you said 250, you
I
think?
think it's about 250 then, the savings approximately.
So now we have the three, HIJ are now three different names. They each have a dollar amount associated with them. The dollar amount is less than the dollar amount, the dollar amount that's already there.
Except for the playground.
The total, though, would be less.
Total is definitely less, yes.
And I think we could call the question and vote on it.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat it, or are we good on the
Any-
question?
You want to repeat the motion?
Yes, I'd like
We
to.
already have a second, but just repeat it for the sake.
So I'm moving that H, I, and J be renamed to window treatments, gym equipment, playground, with the window treatments having a dollar figure of, and
34,560.
gym equipment's 129,600, and playground is 290.
Oh, we'll talk about the numbers, whatever it is, which changes the totals down the line also. We already have a second on that. That was just a repeat.
Mhm.
All in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous? We have 6 votes, 6 yes votes.
Yep.
0 no votes. So the motion passes.
Okay, continuing down on the sheet, we now get into the fees and the expenses sections. The first item there associated with the cost is the architect's fees. On the far right was the original purchase order amount of $939,000. It is now at $1,007,000 due to probably, I think, 4 or 5 added scope of work items that have been done over the last 1.5 to 2 years. So that is the current contract for QAM at $1,007,000. The next item down is the hazmat consultant. This is the Fuss and O'Neill line item. The original cost carried there was $75,000. That has subsequently been increased to $209,000.
Was that covered by Brownfield, I thought, though?
No, that's
Above and beyond?
Yeah. So the there's about
Able to cover
the
everything.
current Fuss and O'Neill purchase order is about $135,000. About $120,000 of that are line items that initially were understood to be covered in the Brownfield grant, but ultimately were not. So those costs were then transferred over to the project costs.
So
And
we
that-
approved it under one thought, and it got
Yes.
changed on this, right?
Then the town manager confirmed that was, there was a couple of those costs were not covered under the Brownfield grant. And then the other line item that is being carried in that is $75,000 for contract administration during the construction phase. So that is another figure that is to be confirmed and determined, but that is what makes up the $209,000. That is the revised number for the hazmat consultant. And then moving down, a couple of the numbers, the geotech and the college's soil sample, those numbers have remained the same. Those are potential and would be associated with the fields with respect to the septic system going in. There may or may not be, some additional testing required there, depending on what is found during that process. The peer review line item is eliminated. There's no need for that at this point in time. The next line item with the cost is the project management. That's the Collier's purchase order that has remained the same. The building commissioning line item originally was allocated for $43,000. That purchase order was issued for $85,000 to SES. And that is through construction and follow-up commissioning a year after completion of the work. So that is a set number. The owner's cost estimator was originally budgeted for $25,000. In the end, that was a total cost of $9,000. So that's that final number there that's reflected in that line. The legal fees, we just kept that the same. To date, there have not been any legal fees associated with the project, but just in case that number is carried across, as is the utility assessment number of the $20,000. Moving down, the expenses, the first two numbers there, the owner's insurance and the materials testing, those are both based on a percentage of the contract amounts. So those both increased from the $18,000 allocated to the $28,000 now shown. The moving and relocation number, that was reduced. Originally, $75,000 was carried. It was reduced due to the fact that we have a larger number for the FF&E cost now, as well as the fact that any physical relocation and moving efforts from the Madison Family Services next door is going to be minimal. So that 50,000 is probably high already still, but
We'll get the football team to work out.
leaving that there. Miscellaneous expenses, that is currently where the reimbursable expenses are going for QA&M's costs. So that is remained at the $25,000. Advertising did not get touched. The financing cost line, that is to be confirmed by the town. That is still something that is in flux. But in talking with Tom and Brian, I think we're part of that conversation as well. Last week, Tom seemed to feel that for $400,000 should be more than adequate for that line item. Those are the costs leading up to the contingency, and I know we want to discuss the contingency cost. The contingency, as you can see, is broken out into two line items. There's the construction, and then there's also the owner's project. Both of these are the owner's construction, just to clarify. The general contractor does not have contingency amount associated with their bid. So that is just a clarification on that. So these two numbers are percentage of the 18 million above. And I think we touched on previously, that's usually 5 to 7%. These numbers are equate to 5%. So if we are looking to increase that to 7%, then these numbers subsequently would need to be adjusted accordingly.
I, for one, I think would feel much more comfortable if we were closer to the 7%. I'd feel much more comfortable closer to 10% knowing the building, but I think 7% is where I would feel most comfortable. Again, if our task is to give a realistic budget number to the Board of Selectmen, you know, I think that's the right thing to do for the building, knowing that any unspent contingency goes directly back to town. So it's just, it's more of a precautionary exercise. If anybody feels differently about increasing that.
No, I think that the messaging from the board of selectmen has been pretty clear that we're not going over budget.
Right, so if you do the math based on just on the construction costs, not with any of the soft costs or the FF&Es. So if our construction cost with the alternates is 18.9, call it 19. 5% of that is 9,047, or yeah, 947,000. 7% of that is about 1.3.
Right.
10% of that would be 1.8. So I would be, honestly, I would be most comfortable with like a $1.5 million contingency. I don't know if everybody thinks that that's a little too generous, but again, if they're looking for a full budget number, that's where I would feel comfortable knowing that any unspent money just comes right back. It's not like that money disappears.
So the original contingency, what was? That was 20% or close to 20%, right? 720 of the, it would have been minus, so at 15.
Well, it's off of
About
the
18 to
construction
12,181.
costs, 12,181.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
What's the
the
percentage?
720
of
is
the
definitely,
Let's see.
actually. Where do I go?
I think it's 6%.
Yeah.
Jinx.
So we'd be increasing it almost to an 8% contingency, but again, with a building of this historic nature with the unknowns, I think an 8% contingency is a healthy one, but.
What does it make the total
Safe.
project? That's the question.
So we're doing 8% on the 18?
Well, but we gotta refactor the FF&E.
Yeah, where did our fees go?
So this total project will come down
1.2 million round numbers,
1.2 FF&E.
round number. There's one, it's 1.2 something,
Okay.
1.2 million. We'll get the calculator out. Get a different number, but if you want 6% of 1.2 million.
Sorry, I'm looking at her.
Everyone's looking at Ann.
72,000, if you 6% of 1.2 is 72,000.
Let's just do
6
this.
times 12 is 72, so.
That gets us at 23.4.
What do you mean?
If you adjust, he said it, you go from 1,469 to 1,200 on the FF&E. So if you drop that 269,000, your total project goes to 23,462. But then adding the contingency back in is what.
Well, I guess, do we even want to put a contingency on what the town's going to buy?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay,
as, you know,
that's good.
we need to be,
One thing I like is an answer. I mean, no quibbling here.
yeah.
Maybe this would help if what are the risks? What are the primary risks and what's the impact of the primary risks? That's rather than just picking a number out. There's the old risk analysis. If it happens, it's $1 million, but it's a 1% chance of happening, so, that's 10% that's $10,000, for example.
The whole point of contingency is that you can't calculate. We've calculated out everything that we reasonably can. It's what happens if you take down a wall and you don't know what's behind it. It's what happens if things aren't as structurally secure as you had intended. It's
Everything is
what
hazardous
happens-
materials in the building. It
Right.
compounds the.
Yeah, my favorite phrase, unforeseen.
unforeseen
conditions.
Yeah, that's-
conditions.
So you end up with roughly 23.9 if you go to 1.5.
Versus, we came into this at 23,731. So at the end of the day, we saved money, but we put it in, we increased our contingency.
I'm okay with that, but again, at some point, somebody's got to should do a risk analysis. If the risk analysis is really unknown, then what is?
Truly is, because it doesn't factor in any cost increases, because right now we're buying out a lump sum package. So if all of a sudden the price for lumber skyrockets, that's on the GC. They're gonna take that. So it truly is just the unforeseen existing conditions, and then if the owner does, the owner being the town, changes the scope in some way or another, or any of the soft costs increase.
It's really about change orders.
So the only.
The change, you have to need a contingency for change orders in addition to other things.
So it's change orders and it's also increased scope outside of the GC. Plus, we have only accounted for escalation.
Well, that's assuming that they're willing to hold their bids out until.
Well, I'm just, it's
There's
pennies
another
for the uncontracted other soft costs, but
I don't know if we gotta remember the town's considering two different options. One is take the bids as they are, and the other is put a referendum hearing in February, March, I guess. And the other is putting the referendum out in May, and all this goes away because we may have to revisit the project.
I think that's beyond our control. The best we can do right now is say, based on the bids that we got back, this is what we think a healthy full budget is.
Do we want to minimally put it at what the percentage was originally?
What?
So this,
Thing.
supposedly this was a 6%, correct, contingency on
720
construction and
Out
others?
of the
720 over 12.18 is 6.
Right, so the 1050 is 5%.
Right.
The 1 million
And the 720 was 6%?
The 6%.
of the original.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So
So
what-
do we want to do minimally get to 6%?
6%.
And say we recommend 8, but minimally we should keep the same percentage that we had in the original.
so that's 1.2 left.
I mean, I think it's in the range we're in. Personally, I think we put one number in front of the town. Say. This is the
Yeah.
number.
And I think
I don't think they're gonna have more information than we are on
Yeah, and
what the right contingency should be.
and I think your suggestion of putting in the same contingency that was in the original is as safe as we're gonna get. I mean, that's a safe number to give.
I don't think it was a safe number to start with. I will
Oh, okay.
tell them that.
Yeah,
from the
we're
get-
should go on there.
I think it was undervalued to start with, and I think continuing on that percentage is a mistake. And I think
I was
8%
thinking of the
is-
committee as the committee's risk, that if we recommend the same percentage as it was before, we would.
Oh, yeah, I think
That's the easiest thing for
committee
the
risk,
committee.
that's easy. Project risk, I
It
think that
is.
would be doing a disservice to
Okay.
the project.
What's the standard contingencies that are currently out there in the projects that you're both working on?
So
So
Renovation's not new.
it's-
Renovations.
Oh, it's renovation, yeah.
Renovation's not new.
Renovation is,
That's, yeah, that, we wanted to, I mean, that's what we're asking.
For 100-year-old buildings.
Yeah.
it's typically, you're looking at probably 8 to 10%.
Okay. So
Agreed.
we voting for 8% then?
Yeah,
I would feel comfortable at.
yeah, only once have I hit that 10% mark, but that was a lot of added scope. But, knowing the condition of this building, and it's going through another winter, I.
That's a good point. Yeah, we don't know what
I know.
more water damage we're gonna see.
What about, that's a general 100-year-old building. What about the amount
Not
of
happy with
abatement
that.
work that has to be done?
That's covered in the base contract, unless there's unforeseen conditions which will require additional hazardous materials removal, and we have unit costs for that, but that will come from contingency.
So if you factor that in to the 8% for old buildings, now 8 buildings that need considerable amount of, old building that need considerable amount of abatement. Does
So
that, does 8% even cover it?
a decent amount of base bid abatement work, all the floors, all the ceilings, a decent amount of the walls. But, my fear is, we're demoing out an entire section of the building. It's impossible to know what we're really getting into until it comes down. Is that we're going to require additional abatement somewhere else? If they go knock on a wall and the plaster just starts falling off the wall adjacent to it because, it wasn't really attached to the masonry that well. Yeah, there's going to be an additional scope somewhere. We feel that just given the base amount of abatement scope, we're not going to be at a huge amount of risk, but there needs to be something in there.
Does that equal more than 8% or is 8%?
I would be comfortable with it.
Eight percent, I think is a good
Pardon,
number.
Peter?
8%, I think 8% is a good number. It's-
Okay, to clarify, 8% of what?
The total construction cost,
So total construction cost, not including anything else
not including
Right.
FF.
The 1895.
or any of the other options.
One question I had, sorry to jump back, the FF&E, is there any design costs not covered?
I believe that it's included in our base services.
Furniture design scope is
Yes.
part of their,
We haven't been released to proceed with
Yeah,
it.
released
but-
with it, but it's right
it's already.
So
addressed, yes.
my question is to Felicia, should we put it all in the construction contingency then? Does it matter?
I think it could just be spread
Doesn't
between
matter.
construction
Doesn't
and
matter?
owners, because it's all our contingency to manage.
We'll finally use that budget line,
Line item transfers.
I know.
No, we're not going to. It's going to be returned. Projects.
Well, I'm saying
are perfect.
if it happens to move.
You wanna-
Yeah.
And just so we review, we're talking about 8% contingency on the construction costs, no escalation. And we're talking about an escalation of how much on the FFE?
The escalation was included.
Yeah, so John had.
Yeah, escalation, that's the
numbers on
escalation.
his-
Escalation's included in the numbers that are presented. So FF&E plus escalation. So these numbers already include an 8% escalation
Not, was
Yeah,
it
through
8%
16
escalation?
months or whatever.
for X number of months, yeah.
What was the escalation amount on the FFE?
8%.
8%.
Okay,
So we're
Okay.
keeping it consistent, basically. We're escalating the contingency as we did the FF&Es,
Yes.
no, we're
8%.
we're putting a contingency on the construction, but we're putting an escalation on the FFE.
Correct.
Correct.
And we're not, then we have allowances for other things.
I'm just saying we're
Roofing
consistent in our
permits, that kind of stuff.
contingency escalation.
Okay, need a motion.
I will make a motion since I'm the one who feels very strongly. I move to increase the total contingency to 8% of the total construction costs of 18,958.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Raise your
Aye.
hands. Okay. It's like, okay, 6 out of 6. And do we need another? We already voted on the FFE.
Yes.
Really voted.
Yeah, now this is the construction. I think that comes to the end of our,
That should give us a final number.
yes.
So John, if you could just plug in the revised numbers and reissue this so that we know what the final number being recommended is.
Yeah,
Um,
we all need that, by the way. That's the number that goes for tomorrow morning and then, and Tuesday, Wednesday night. Is there any other new business or any other discussion on item 10? Is there any other new business? We can have to make a motion to do it, to add it or not, but is there any other new business?
I just wanted to put out there if we are going to be, so it's kind of, at this point, we've done our work and it's now in the Board of Selectmen's hands. I just don't know if we need to continue to keep meeting, what our meetings are going to be based on. I want to be
Until-
cognizant of everybody's time, but if it's kind of, we've done what we've done and now we can't really do more until we hear back,
Until construction starts. or-
right? Are we,
I think we should take that into consideration. We probably should have the next meeting, and that should be on the agenda. John? Should be on the agenda for next, whatever our next meeting is after we've made these. If we need, that would be the meeting we would either terminate not terminate. Not,
put on hiatus?
yeah, put on hiatus, put the committee on hiatus, or maybe, we might need a meeting after that, but we would discuss that the following. We have anything else? Next time on the agenda is public comment. Remember, this is comments. We will take comments. We can, under certain, we can answer certain easy questions. But this is really a comment section, not a public, not necessarily question and answer. If you could, how are we doing here? Got some people online?
We do,
Okay, take the people in the room first.
but we don't have any hands raised yet.
Okay,
If you-
take the people in the room
If
first.
you're online, you'd like to speak.
And we have the person here. Could you give your name?
I'm Maureen Lopes, 25 Old Farms Road. And just one observation from tonight. One, I have been able through Zoom to attend a lot of your meetings. And I look forward to where this all finally gets simplified. I know you've had to really go into the weeds and somehow that's got to get to the level that we can understand it. One comment I'd like to make though, that contingency is a tricky thing. I understand that we don't want to get caught short, but it's borrowed money. So it really doesn't help at getting returned to the town if it's already will cost us money to have it, even if we find we don't need it. So I want you to be aware of that. That really jumped out at me. And I guess I'm just really more and more concerned about borrowing money. I know we're down the path, that's it. And we're gonna consider this, but it's a big chunk of money. So thank you. And thank you for your work.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or any comments from people in the room? Seeing none?
One online.
One online?
What was the total
Could you-
for
could
the,
you please?
oh, sure, Jim Schmaltz, Jonathan's Landing. What was the total that it came out to?
I think we're waiting
That
for
still
that.
needs to be calculated based on
Calculation.
The changes.
selections and changes.
The total before the changes was, if you haven't seen it, get my glasses, 23,000,000, 731. We will probably be very close to that. We took some off and added, we took a couple of items off the scope, and we added more in contingency. Good point, though, that the money is borrowed, that's borrowed money. It's not free money. So I imagine it will be somewhere very close to 23.7 million.
All right, thank you.
Any other hands raised?
If you'd like to raise a hand, if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand on your computer or your phone or wherever you're at. We'll check one last time.
I'm on it now.
Okay. No further. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll approve.
I don't think we need to vote on that.
I think I could approve it.
Yeah, you can actually say hearing no objections.
Hearing no objection.